Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's Gaming Friday. I'm Gary and today I'm taking a look at State of Decay 2, which released in May of 2018, developed by Undead Labs. It's running on the Unreal Engine 4 and was released on Xbox One and on PC, and with a Steam release due out in 2020. Undead Labs is now basically a part of Microsoft Studios, who published the game. The original State of Decay came out in 2013 and was somewhat of an indie darling. It garnered quite a few awards for being quite innovative in a genre of zombie games which were a dime a dozen. So, do you want to play another zombie game? And it's still an indie game, and it is a zombie survival video game where you build a community by essentially recruiting survivors, managing your resources like food and medicine, while fighting off against the undead hordes. There are a variety of zombie types, from your standard zombies to your armored wearing zombies to plague zombies, and then you'll have your special infected with screamers, bloaters, feral hunters, and your tank variant, which is the Juggernaut. You're very likely to be killed by a Juggernaut and the feral hunters if you're in the middle of the night and you're not well armed. You kind of just want to avoid them as best you can. You don't even want to try taking on a tank in your vehicle, because it will just destroy that vehicle. There are 3 large maps to choose from at the beginning, and you can move your community to a new map after you've reached a certain point during your playthrough, although then you will kind of lose some of the things that you've built up, and it's a way of just kind of hitting the reset button and taking most of your crew to a new area and extending that community's kind of playtime. You can also just stay in one of those 3 maps to your completion of the game. There are quite a few other factions that you'll come across in the game. They're called enclaves, and you can kind of help them, and they'll be constantly asking you for your help, and then eventually you'll be able to trade items with them. And it is a little bit annoying. The radio, your walkie-talkie, will be constantly bleeping at you as they are requesting help.
Hey neighbor, we found a location for our clinic, but the zombie situation is out of control. Can you help us out?
As you play through the game, you'll be building up supplies, expanding your base, building structures, crafting items, and I would also suggest crafting silencers to put on your weapons. You have to kind of be careful with the cars though, because if you don't brake in time, or if you take a corner wrong, or you try and take a shortcut, your car can easily get destroyed just by being stuck on a piece of terrain to which you cannot escape from. And then you might, if you've got enough fuel in the car, enough gas, you might be able to get it going, but just by steering it and trying to maneuver the car off that broken bit of terrain. You'll always need to be finding fuel though, because these cars guzzle gas. Now, the developers have said that because supplies are short, the gas cans that you find are mostly empty. So that's why the cars don't really get very far. It is, I kind of go, okay, that's fine. But then when I'm, building a settlement right next to a petrol station, it's like, why am I, or if I'm even creating my own fuel, it's like, why am I only making half a can of gas? It doesn't make much sense. But it's one of those game limiting things which I just accept after a while, because once you get far enough into the game, you'll find that fuel is not the biggest problem, especially when you just make reserves, put some in the trunk of the car, and you'll be fine. I would also say that with the cars, you just kind of want to avoid some of those shortcuts. It might seem like you want to take a straight line to where you want to go, where you need to go, but it's really not the case. You should just stick to the road. There's the occasional points, and on some maps that you'll be like, I can go across there and I'm not going to wreck the car. But some of the maps are very mountainous and have lots of uneven terrain, to which you'll end up just destroying the car. It'll just get stuck and you'll never get it back out of there. None of the cars will kind of respawn. That car in its wrecked state will just be there as you left it the entire time you're on the map. If you do leave the map to move your community to another map, and then for whatever reason come back to the original map, everything kind of gets reset. Resources, faction standings, everything like that. The story to the game is pretty straightforward. In order to complete the game, all you need to do is, depending on which map you're doing, is to destroy roughly 10 plague hearts, which will be randomly scattered throughout the city. Once you've destroyed all 10 of those, you'll then have by then elected a leader of your community, and you'll have a quest line for that leader, which will, once completed, end the game. There will be a small kind of pop-up towards the end. It will be like, if you do this mission, you will never be able to return to your community. Do you wish to continue? Once you've done that, the game is almost over, almost immediately after that. One of the perks that I do like about the kind of replayability of the game is that because there are 3 sort of characters that you can have as a leader, you can have a trader, a builder, and a sheriff. And depending on which one of those characters you have, you'll earn a legacy card, so that when you start a new community, a new playthrough, you can transfer some of those survivors from your previous community into a new one, and they'll carry over their rucksack of whatever supplies they had, whatever skills they've learnt, whatever traits they've picked up. That all carries on over too. And the legacy card's a really great way of giving you a good bonus into your next community. For instance, I finished with the builder, and so now that I have the builder legacy card, going into the next game, I don't need to spend fuel or power to run certain items in the community safe house. Now, I should just say that I was massively underwhelmed when I started playing this game. I was really disappointed in how little the developers seem to care for telling a story. You get to choose just a couple of characters to begin with. They come in as a couple. You can actually take, I think there's a female couple, there's a couple of old friends, and there's a couple of strangers that have kind of hooked up together along the way. And it's just the same kind of tutorial mission for each of them. And that is kind of essentially it. That's like the game's only really story beat. After that, it is just a case of the characters interacting with each other and occasionally just coming up with dialogue about who they were and what they were up to before the apocalypse began. And it's strange because sometimes I'll take my character out on their own and you kind of expect to have an AI companion with you that they would talk to, but sometimes my character would just start talking to nobody in the car. I'm like, my character's gone insane. But I did enjoy those kind of snippets, those insights, because there was really not much story there to speak of. And it's something that the developers said that they wanted within the game was to have an emerging kind of story that's kind of player driven. And at first I was like, that's just really pathetic. Like, I don't want that. Like, craft me something. Tell me a story. I don't want to have to find the story for myself. Why do I care? And I literally, after about 40 minutes of playing the game, I switched it off and I was like, this is just awful. It's just a crafting management simulator. I found it really easy. It wasn't very engaging at all. But after an hour or so, I was like, oh, maybe I'm just being too harsh. People keep saying it's an indie game, lower your expectations. And I always do that. I always support the underdog. If they get a game made and finished and out there, I'll give it a go. So I was like, all right, I'm being maybe unfair. I'll come back and play it. After 6 hours had passed, I realized I didn't actually want to put the controller down. I was really invested in my characters and those that had joined my community. I was at one point incredibly frustrated with the first sort of medical character I had, whose morale just hit rock bottom, and so she was starting fights with the other survivors. She was consuming all of the food in the reserves just to make herself feel better, and she was just constantly whining and moaning. And she was like, I'm going to leave the community if you don't sort this out. I'm like, I've done everything I can. If you want to leave, fuck off. And she did, and morale in the place went up. And so since then, if I get a character in my community who starts causing trouble, I show them the door, kick them out. It's like, this world is hard enough without you dragging everybody down with us. So, go. Unlike the previous State of Decay, all of the characters in this game are randomly generated, from their names, to their attire, to their traits, to their characteristics, and that's fine. It means every player's sort of experience with which characters you come across is going to be very unique. There will be obviously some similarities, but it'll be mostly unique to you. This is what drew me in just that extra bit more, was the state of permadeath. The fact that every one of your survivors can die, and there is no save and reload game. Once they're dead, they're gone. And that also drastically affects the morale of your community as well. And one of my lead characters that I had from the beginning of the game died about halfway through my playthrough, along with one of my other companions, because I accidentally drove into I just cleared a plague cart. So my characters were infected, they were low on health, I'm out of supplies, I'm in the car, which is beaten up, and I'm driving it straight back to get back to the base so everyone can rest, and I drove over a bloater. Now, the bloaters, the gas explodes, it's toxic, but if you're in a car, it completely fills the inside of the car. So my characters tried to bail out, but they only managed to step outside the car into more gas and just died, and I lost 2 characters from my community, plus the character who I was helping. Don't ever know what happened to them. So it's like straight back to my community, and they didn't even know what happened. So I had to send 2 more survivors down to where those ones had died to go and pick up their rucksacks and their stuff and bring that car back to the base. And I was like, this is really sad. And so I go, okay, developers, I understand the way you're telling your stories is that it is in essence a Walking Dead style, where you don't really know which characters are going to die and which ones are going to make it. But on the same kind of level, I'm like, that's all fine and good for your standard episode of The Walking Dead, but where's the overarching story? And that is what's not here. So I can honestly say, if people are bored of The Walking Dead, you probably quickly get bored of State of Decay 2 as well. Now, the AI in the game, occasionally it's fairly effective, but a lot of the time I've been in the middle of fighting a horde, and my AI companion would just stand there with his thumb up his ass, with eyes just gazing into the clouds, like there's nothing happening in front of him. I don't know whether it's just a glitch or it's a small bug, but it is really annoying. And sometimes the zombies are just as stupid as the AI survivors, where they'll just kind of mass and get jammed in a doorway, kind of Land of the Dead game style. But otherwise, zombies, they will just continue to pour at you. And if you're searching and making noise, you'll attract more zombies. The Screamer zombie, special infected, will attract a lot more zombies that'll come after you. And in that regard, it can be quite engaging. One of the big features about the game is that it's kind of that risk reward. Should I go and loot that building, or go and clear that infestation, or quickly go and do that quest, or do I need to rush my companion home to go and get some more Zombrex? And you have to keep morale up in camp. So survivors, they need to eat, they need to sleep, they need to be medicated. Otherwise they will just cause trouble and consume lots of resources. I did like the fact that I found an original Xbox, which after finding, you find a safe house with a generator and a lounge in which they can play it, and then your survivors can hang out and, I don't know, play brute force or whacked and forget that the outside world even exists. There is a day and night cycle in the game as well, and the first night I spent in State of Decay 2 was an absolute nightmare. I didn't realise there was a prompt earlier on in the game during the tutorial for a flashlight, and so I was wandering around trying to loot houses in the dark with just these red glaring eyes just coming at me as the zombie horde would just be round the corner. It was pretty nightmare inducing, and I was frantically trying to adjust the gamma settings and the brightness settings. I'm like, why can I not see anything? I'm like, well, it's because the power's out. It's State of Decay. It's a zombie apocalypse. There's no street lights, and the moon doesn't exactly illuminate the interiors of windowless buildings. So Yeah, it can be pretty dark. I think the graphics in the game are okay. They are, in some places, they look like, previous generation graphics. And then in some instances, I'm just like, okay, the textures here aren't too bad. And maybe it's because it's a nighttime kind of setting. Sometimes it looks a little bit better. But I would just say that the graphics they're acceptable. I don't look at the game and go, it's really ugly. But there could have been some more particle effects or some more texture effects which would have really, really enhanced the experience. But for a budget game, I'll give it a pass on that. Sound and music is actually pretty damn good. The only drawback I have with the game's music or with the game's sound is the droning of the cars. It's really annoying. It's just a dull drone, and almost all the cars sound the same. I don't know whether it's just me or you spend too much time in the cars and then you just kind of find yourself wishing for a radio station to put on in the car. I don't know, just some music just to alleviate the sound of the car droning on. I don't know, maybe it's part of the ambience of the apocalypse, but I'd rather just have some tunes on, I don't know, boost morale slightly. Or just to drown out that goddamn walkie-talkie of other communities begging for help, begging for food supplies, begging for escort missions, begging for something. And yeah, even though they are always asking for help, if you do ally with them, they'll keep those sort of areas that they're in a little bit more secure of zombies, and you'll have more trading partners, especially if you need certain supplies at your base. There is another main feature of the game, and that is that it has co-op play. And I've only dipped my toes into co-op play, just because for my first playthrough I just wanted to play a solo experience, and I wanted the ability to be able to pause the game. The moment you open yourself up to multiplayer, whether you're in multiplayer or not, you cannot pause the game at all. Which I also kind of like. That kind of feels like you have that persistent world. But when you do go into co-op, there's just a slight increase in zombies, and they do appear to be just slightly stronger as well to take more hits. And again, with the co-op nature of the gameplay, is that the other player will also have a community as well as your own. Whilst another player is in your game, they're there pretty much to help you and your community and to take the place of an AI companion that would be with you on an excursion. That's not to say that that player won't also pick up a few supplies and things that they can take back to their own community to help them as well. And you will find that you will need to keep shuffling your characters, because each character in your community will need to sleep, will need to rest and recover wounds, in which case then you will need to take out another character into the wild to go and forest for supplies. Team play is kind of required here, and you do need to help each other, because I haven't come across any griefers in the online, which I can always imagine that you would have run that risk where another player would just try and sabotage your efforts. But it's a team game, and I think if you can get up to 3 other players that you're friends with to come and help you build your community, I think there's a lot of fun to be had, especially if you end up being overrun by a horde, or you're playing with a character that you've had for a really long time and like their traits, and yet you're infected and you've got about 20 minutes before you need to take a blood plague vaccination. Then you get those really tense moments that are really effective. I do like the fact that you kind of have to return to the base to take the Zombrex, and I do like the fact that the game kind of gives you a timer as to when that infection will take you. And again, that all ties back into the kind of the permadeath, which I do like. Since the game's release, they have patched a lot of the bugs that were in the game, and there were a lot of bugs in the game. But they've also added 2 extra difficulty modes to try and extend the life of the game, and for those that are a big fan of the original State of Decay will really appreciate the new difficulty levels that they've added, because State of Decay 2 is a little bit easier than the previous game. And if you are a fan of the game, they have added 2 DLCs to the game. They've added the most recent one being a zombie horde mode, with ever-increasingly difficult waves of enemies. Again, if you're a fan of the original State of Decay, they added the Heartland location from the first game. This DLC mode also lets you play it from 2 different perspectives, and it is kind of like a mini nostalgia trip for those that played the original game, as you will be revisiting pretty much all the locations from that original game. So as I said, one of the main things that you'll be doing in the game is heading out in your vehicle, trying to help other survivors, trying to reduce the infestations around you, although it does feel like you destroy one infestation, you return back to base and 3 more will have popped up almost immediately, and your survivors, your community will be like, oh, morale is really low, there's so many zombies out there, go and deal with it, go and thin out the horde, and you're like, I just did. Like, it's never ending. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more progression, maybe kind of map wide, that you could maybe reduce some of the zombie numbers, or I don't know. It's one of those things where it's an indie game and it does what it does very well. And taking out those plague hearts, you do need to go in there prepared. You do need to have some grenades or Molotovs or something, because every time you damage that plague heart, it's going to attract a load more plague zombies. And they are the most dangerous type, because just a few bites from them, you'll very quickly see your infection meter filling up. And of course, the plague heart itself, you don't want to be attacking it with a melee weapon, because it emits the toxic gas, which will also just infect you. It's very deadly. Now, I've mentioned the juggernauts earlier, and you can see this juggernaut is just, it's annoying that there's always a juggernaut seems to be just outside of my community safe house. It's always just lurking there. I managed to kill one, went out on a mission and came back, and there would just be another juggernaut just skulking around outside my headquarters. It's like, jeez. And then in this instance, this one decided he was going to make his way all the way up to my car park and then get stuck between all of the cars there. And now my cars, my squad car and my other cars, oh my, I'm putting this fucker down. Like, you're not doing that. You're not getting away with this. Now, I've not had this happen before. That's the way it is. So, killed him. I should be able to hopefully, I can flip these cars, flip them over. Got a toolbox here, so I can repair the squad car. I'm repairing the squad car because it's one of my characters. It's belonged in the family, so I've got to repair this now. Looks like I'm going to need more toolboxes in order to get it working fully after it was totally wrecked. But still, that's your emergent gameplay story. That's the story of my community, and that I've really grown to like it. Like, once a good day of gameplay has passed, and you think back as to all the little interactions that you've had and characters that you've met, and you're like, it's fine. It's not the best story, but it's a personal story, and so I've kind of really grown to appreciate and like the game. I knew after just a few hours that I was being too harsh on the game, and that there was a really good game with lots of interesting mechanics just under the surface, that I just had to get there. And when I did, I found myself having a really good time, even when I was having a bad time. Now, the game did get incredibly mixed to average reviews across the sort of critical spectrum, but Microsoft has said that by August 2019, the total player count for the game had surpassed 5 million players. That's not necessarily 5 million sales, because of course Microsoft has Game Pass, which if you're a member of, you can download and play State of Decay 2 for free, because you've got that subscription. And what I do like is that it is also cross-play from Xbox console to PC, which, I really like that. I'm recommending the game, I still do believe that it is a very underwhelming intro. This doesn't feel very cinematic at all, and I'm not always a fan of emergent narratives, but it is done really well here. So Metacritic score for the game on PC is a 69 out of 100, on Xbox a 66 out of 100. GameSpot gave it a 5 out of 10, IGN a 7 out of 10, Destructoid an 8 out of 10, and PC Gamer gave it a 74 out of 100. Now, some of those scores, scores are, I don't know. We don't always do scores on the channel here. But I would personally give the game a 7 out of 10 as well. Really enjoyed my time with it. I really enjoyed building up my communities. I kind of rushed my first playthrough, which was a bit of a mistake, because that kind of quick grinding to finish the game took some of the fun out of it. It's a game that you kind of just need to relax into and take the bad with the good. And then I've had a fully satisfying experience. And now I can't wait to just play more. I just want to explore the maps, explore the environments, get new customization clothing options and new weapons, and have fun with friends. And so I've genuinely really enjoyed my experience with the game, and it comes quite highly recommended for me. It's a game that's kind of gone through the gambit of emotions, from absolute dread and being completely underwhelmed and really disliking the inventory and management system and crafting element, to a game that I don't want to put the controller down. And so that's a win. And so with that, I just want to say thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday to look at another video game. Of course, new film reviews on Thursdays. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you next time.